a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes, where we're changing the world, wait for it, one ohm at a time. I'd like to remind all of our listeners that we are a live call-in show, and you can call in and become part of the conversation, ask questions, share thoughts. The number you would call is 202-570-7057. Again, that's 202-570-7057. The only thing we ever ask is that you're respectful. Or we do have a hang-up button. It's not one of those shows. So this week on the Dr. Kevin Show, I'm going to refer to him as a young man. We have Gordon Phillips. Gordon is 77 years young and has reached that age without any kind of health issues, on no kinds of medication, and functioning in the world like he's more like in his 50s. The 50s that happen just before everything falls apart. We've invited Gordon to join us this week because in that 77 years, he has had a plethora of experience and opportunities, but also some insight, some guidance, and some wisdom. And they always say the proof is in the pudding. And a serving of Gordon pudding, I thought, was just what my listeners needed this week. Gordon, welcome.
Well, thank you, sir. That was a great intro. I appreciate it. But I have to point out to your listeners that I attribute it all to my longevity and youth to all the drugs I took back during the summer of love. I'm only kidding. I never did drugs. I was probably the only hippie who didn't. Actually, I was the oddball in the community. I kind of liked my state of consciousness and didn't want to alter it, but everybody around me was pretty flipped out. That's for sure. Back in those days.
You know, I find that very interesting because I have, through the years, led people on journeys and vision quests and stuff like this. And, quite often people want to have hallucinogenics or something involved as part of the process to let go. And I don't say that I oppose that. I think everybody should have the right to choose what they want to do with their body. And it's really nobody else's damn business.
Agreed.
But, I've always tried to encourage my students along the way that says, I can have a better high off of drugs or hallucinogens of any kind than you will ever have on them.
Oh, I hear that completely. Totally. Yeah. I've been meditating. I was initiated into transcendental meditation in 1971. And I've been meditating, not consistently, but fairly consistently, not every single day, all these years since. And I've experienced moments of consciousness and awareness that were astonishing. Just me alone in a room meditating.
Yep.
Yeah. So I hear you completely.
Well, and from how I look at the world, we can be physically alone in the room, but we're never alone.
No.
So
well, we live in a universal field of consciousness that I receive on the Gordon channel and you receive on the Kevin channel, right? So we're all on the same channel, so to speak, but you're never alone. And when everything's connected and you're an eternal being, how could you ever be truly alone?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about allowing yourself to get rid of that's between you and the everything you're part of.
Yeah, yeah. The 1 million things you mean between you? Yeah, all the problems and all the tapes running in your head, and like the Smothers. Maybe the audience is too young to remember the Smothers Brothers. Used to be a kind of a
I
folk
remember.
comedy duo. Yeah, one of them always said, "Mom loved you best." It was really a funny line, but we all have those tapes running in our heads of inadequacy and fear and inability to represent ourselves well in the world, and all these. They call it the monkey mind. You go to meditate, and all these thoughts come rushing in of what you didn't do yesterday and what you've got to do tomorrow, and it's so easy to let life get in the way of being alive, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, I just throw the monkey a banana and it goes away.
Yeah, that's just don't step on the peel when he's done. That's all, right?
Yeah, don't step on the peel on the way out the door.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, in our first segment, and I usually, oftentimes, I've been not doing it quite as consistently as I used to. Then again, I've had my show for almost 18 years, so I'm not going to always be the bastion of consistency. Is a hot topic. But you kind of invited me to throw out in our exchange before you came on air, just so sometimes my listeners know that I know somebody in advance or that I've never met them. Not that it makes any difference. Gordon and I have never met. We exchanged a couple of emails when he agreed to be on the show. But he said, what about this for a hot topic? And I'm going to throw it to let Gordon open up the hot topic segment. For those of you who may be new listeners on the Dr. Kevin Show, the hot topic is either something that warms the cockles of my heart or burns my neck.
Your butt. Yes. No, I'm sorry. Your gluteus maximus. Yes.
And some days it's a little more Maximus than others.
Those days are minimus. We call those minimus days. Yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah. So share your hot topic.
Well, the hot topic that I came on ostensibly, I love that word to talk about, was health and wellness related. But the other thing that I've been doing for 30 years is I'm a financial and small business financial risk management consultant. You might say, well, what the heck do those two things have to do with each other? But I guess I would point out that the world's wealthiest billionaires on their deathbeds would probably give every dime if they could live in really good health and energy for another, 10 or 20 years. So without health and wellness, money kind of takes a back seat. At least it does in my world. But those are the connections anyway for me. So which would you like me to talk about first?
Well, I'm actually going to jump right on what you said because we do a lot of freewheeling here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Which is, I was last week before, I don't know, sometime in the recent past, I was in Chicago, and I went to the Architectural and Science Museum. And they had this thing where they had a mental emotional section for mental and emotional health, and they had a physical health section. It's really good. If you're ever in Chicago, I'd recommend going. But it brought the stats out that once somebody is really making enough money for all their basic needs and they don't have to worry about money, that the increased quality of life at a max, according to their statistical research, is 7%. You have a 7% range of which you have a better quality of life, no matter how obscenely wealthy you get. And when you said that, it made me think, what do you think about that? You think that that's a good statistic? You think that's correct?
Yeah, I think it probably is correct. I mean, think of it this way. Suppose you make $50,000 a year, which today isn't anywhere near what it used to be, right? But you work for 40 years and $2 million comes through your hands, right? That's just the math. 50,000 times 40 years is $2 million passes through your hands. You get to be 65 years old, and Social Security informs us the average person has less than $400 for an emergency, like if your muffler falls off your car. And they look back over the course of their lives, and they literally cannot explain where the money went. They don't really understand where the money went. And the truth is that it's just thousands of decisions every day, little tiny decisions. Do I go through Dunkin' Donuts and get a coffee and muffin every day on the way to work? That's $100 cash every month. That's $1,200 a year. That's 12,000 in 10 years. Is that possible? Yes, it is. If you get to the end of your life, you can't account for all the money you went, and then you're broke, or you're relying upon the government, or you're relying upon friends. And so it's just the incrementalism. It's the same thing with health, which we can talk about that tonight as well. But if I was saying to a friend of mine who's a naturopath, I do some consulting with her. She's become a friend. She's a great lady here in New Hampshire. And I said, how many mouthfuls of food do you think we take in per meal? She said, I never thought about that before. I said, well, I went online and it looks like, some people are saying 40. Well, let's just pick that number, 40 mouthfuls of food. You eat 3 times a day, 365 days a year. 50 years later, you've eaten 2 million plus mouthfuls of food. And every single one of those was a decision. Every single one of those mouthfuls was a nutritional decision. If you take the premise that everything you eat either heals you or kills you, and as the joke goes, you dig your grave with a fork, then you make 2 million nutritional decisions in your lifetime. You get to be in really rough shape, health-wise when you're 60. It's the same exact analogy as getting to 60 or 65 and looking back to the thousands of financial decisions you made, most of which were pretty small. Some are big, like getting the kids in the right school or what house to buy or so forth. It's the relationship between those two spheres of people's lives are so similar and interconnected in so many more ways than I think most people realize.
Well, one of the things, Gordon, when you were talking about, did they decide to stop and get a muffin and a coffee at Dunk's every day for 40 years, I thought, did you figure in the cost of the number of health issues doing that gave them that they had to pay for medications, they had to pay for... I mean, that's another whole total cost.
Oh, you're totally correct. You're destroying your cells completely. The cell, you got upwards of 100 trillion. That's 100,000 billion. Like we can even get our brains wrapped around that. Every one of those cells has got all these little organelles and mitochondria, the little power supplies of your body, right? The health of your cell is the health of the tissue, and the health of the tissue is the health of your organ systems. And if you poison them every day throughout your life, you don't give them what they need, and they do their best. They struggle on. You get into your 40s, 50s, your immune system starts to get compromised. The inflammation starts to set in. So I was going to share with you during one of these segments an essay that I wrote once called Dead Bacteria Don't Lie. So when we have time, I'll get into that with you. I thought you'd find that fun.
I absolutely... I'm going to let you read it in a second. I just want to make a comment on something you said because you're giving me so much to work here with, Gordon.
Sorry. I shouldn't have gone through Dunk's for a coffee right before we spoke.
No. I think it's great. I just want people to know that spoonful of food that you make that choice of that negatively impacts your cells and your health is also that spoonful of life. The people you surround yourself with, the things you put up. It's not just did you work 40 years. Did you work for 40 years as something you loved? Did you work at 40 years for something that made you get excited to get out of bed, that made you happy, that got all of those great chemical reactions that happen in a joyful, happy life, which strengthens your immune system and strengthens your cells. And, so it's not even the spoonfuls of food. It's how many spoonfuls of stuff did you swallow that you really shouldn't have had to swallow?
Oh, no, I agree. You can poison your soul. You can poison your spirit. You can poison your body. You surround yourself with negative people. They're battery drainers. They drain your battery every day, and you're constantly trying to recharge yourself. The old saying, the old chestnut, you are the sum of your 5 closest friends. If you'll eat the way they do, you'll share the same humor. You probably have the same kinds of jobs, same kind of income, same belief systems. Maybe you vote for the same political candidates, go to the same church, So you can change all that. You can change your sphere of influence. It's a conscious choice. But
now there are two of the deadly sins right there you just talked about: politics and churches. But we won't go into those. We're already running behind on all the stuff we want to cover.
Oh, come on. No, seriously. No, only kidding. Go ahead.
Gordon, trust me, I have a feeling we're going to have you back.
Well, that was my pleasure, sir.
So why don't you go ahead and share your essay so we don't run into a million and one other nuts as the squirrels we are, and forget to let that happen. So why don't you go ahead and share that?
Well, oh, sure. I'm not going to actually read it. It would take too long. I'll just synopsize it for the listeners, okay? So here it is. So when you walk, so I have to warn everybody, this is the Stephen King, uneasy stomach warning. You may want to tune out right now just for 2 or 3 minutes. So you walk past a graveyard.
Don't you dare. Listen, you need to hear this. Go ahead, Stephen.
I beg your pardon. So you go past a graveyard and you see hundreds and hundreds of tombstones, some from 200 years ago, some from last week. But a lot of those people have been there a long time, right? And they were buried in sealed caskets inside steel vaults, right? But you dig them up 100 years later, what would you expect to see, realistically? Skull and bones, basically, right? Where did they go? Where'd they go? They were in a sealed casket. Where did they go? Well, they were obviously decomposed, right? By what? So that's the question. I'll put it to you. Do you know? Teasing you. What happened to their bodies? All right, I'll answer.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
They were digested by their own microbes, the ones that are waiting inside each of us right this second. We are walking around as walking, talking buffet tables. We have about 50 times as many bacteria in our bodies as we do bacterial DNA in our bodies as we do our own DNA. And when you eliminate on the toilet, number 2, I'll be as polite as I can here, a huge percentage of that is dead bacteria. So these organisms live inside you your entire life. They live synergistically inside your body your entire life. And as you get older and as your tissue becomes acidic, which is natural with aging, and as you develop what's called apoxia, which is less oxygen than ideal, and your immune system can't cope, your terrain gradually becomes more and more polluted. It's the beginning of inflammation. And the day that you assume room temperature, all those little guys just go to town. And so your job is to hold them off for as long as possible. So that's the Stephen King punchline. How do we hold them off as long as possible?
Yeah. So
was that weird enough for you?
Oh, I think that's great. I mean, what I do want to say is that the bodies buried in the last 20 or 30 years actually will survive much longer because they have such a natural higher level of formaldehyde that they don't need to embalm them as much. And they're probably a little bit more microbe resistant because we have toxified ourselves so much. That's all I was thinking.
Oh, sure. Did you know that that's funny. Do you know the end point of the metabolic breakdown of Splenda? You know that sugar substitute is formaldehyde.
Yep.
So you pickle yourself every time you put some of that sweetener into your cup of coffee. Going back to the Dunkin' Donuts meme once again. So your job really is to understand how to prevent inflammation from developing in your cells while you're healthy. That's the job. Once you recognize that inflammation is the basis of almost all disease is inflammatory in its early stages. And it all comes down to the health of the cell. The voltage of the cell drops as you age. So different compounds can't move through osmosis through the cell wall. Your blood becomes sluggish and slows down. There's a natural pulse. Here's something really interesting for everybody to know. We were taught in school that when your heart beats, it pumps blood through your body. I mean, I've spent my whole life thinking that. And that's just absolutely not true. Your heart pumps blood through the main veins, venules, arteries. They're called arterioles. But if you took all the capillaries in your body and lined them up end to end, they would go around the Earth at the equator 2.5 times, which is staggering when you think about what the vascular system inside the body looks like. So every one of those 100 trillion cells has to be serviced by red blood cells. How do they get into the cells? If your heart would have to pump at 1,000 pounds per square inch to get that blood into that entire structure. That's not the way it works. The way those blood cells travel down the capillaries is it's an electromagnetic pulse that the body creates. It's called vasomotion, V-A-S-O, vasomotion. So this natural electromagnetic pulse squeezes your red blood cells into their end targets, which is every cell in your body. But by the time you're in your 60s or 70s, that response has dropped by as much as 90%. So I'm not here to promote it. I'm just saying there's a device that I use at home that helps reconstitute that pulse very naturally to like when you're a teenager again. So when you get to be an old coot like me and you're staring at 80 years old, how do you have all the energy and the wellness that I'm in better health than I was when I was 40, honestly. It sounds like an exaggeration. People don't typically believe you, but if you take the metrics, the blood test, the blood sugar, and your blood pressure, I've never been on a single medication my entire life. All my maternal grandparents, almost every one of them, had died by the time they reached my age of cancer or heart disease. So it's not like I was born with some kind of superior DNA. But when you learn these simple modalities that give your cells what they need to stay healthy and get the toxins out of your body, it just changes the game completely. And this isn't something I do for a living. My main area is in financial consulting, but I'm so enthusiastic about this because so many people are just walking around like the walking wounded these days, and you feel compelled to want to share, just your conscience compels you to want to share what you can to help people because you know that it works. So there you go. Well, and so there's a couple of different things I want to say here. So the first thing is, whatever this, so I'm asking you, what is the name of this device that recharges the electromagnetic field? Is how I understood you said. Did I catch that correctly? No, you got it pretty much right. It's called pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, PEMF. Pulsed electromagnetic frequency, I guess what it is. There's a bunch of companies that make them. There's one company in particular that's a German company called Beamer, B-E-M-E-R. And it's a mat that you lay on 8 minutes in the morning and 8 minutes in the evening. I mean, it's beyond non-invasive. You could fall asleep while you're laying on it. You could meditate, read a book, whatever. You just lay on the mat. And it naturally recreates that natural electromagnetic pulse in the body that gets your red blood cells moving. And the before and after is insane. If you take a little pinprick of blood from your finger and you put it on a microscope slide and you look at your blood, like they call them dark field or phase contrast microscopes. A lot of naturopath offices have them. You actually see your fresh blood right under the eyepiece of the microscope, all the little blood cells wiggling around. And what you'll see with most people today is very sluggish, very poor looking blood, where the outside of the blood cell almost looks serrated like a bottle cap, like a beer bottle cap, and they're all stacked up like poker chips. That's called Rouleau syndrome. They've lost a lot of their natural electromagnetic repulsion, so they're not keeping each other apart so they can move around freely. And the insides are dark. They've lost a lot of the hemoglobin, so they don't look nice, that nice cherry plump red that they're supposed to look. So then you get on the Beamer for 8 minutes, and you take another pinprick of blood, same person, same blood, and they're just rushing around, moving around, looking really great. So, I mean, it's just the proof is right there. Now, there's several other things that I do that are not that technology that create the same effect on the blood. There's a number of things you can do to get your circulation improved. But that's just something that, that's what I do. So now I'm going to, if you haven't figured out, I'm fairly blunt. So if you want to, when the show is over or when we're on break, if you have a link to this, Oh, sure.
If you want to post it on the comments on the Dr. Kevin Show on the Facebook page.
Okay, sure. I'd be happy to. Yeah. But I'm not a Beamer distributor, Kevin. I used to be, but I'm not. I'm no longer a Beamer distributor. I mean, I never went around with a business card saying I'm your Beamer guy. When I brought these things into my life, I just shared them with everybody I knew and said, "Man, you got to get one of these." I use another small device that increases the cell voltage. I use a patch I put on my skin every day that helps stimulate your stem cells. These are all really simple things. I could put a dozen links. I don't want to do that. I'm not here to promote all of this stuff. There is one website I would like to, before the show's over, to steer people to, because I think the most affordable thing that people can do to help themselves the most is to learn about this stem cell activation patch. That technology is just insane. If we have time to talk about it.
We have time to talk about whatever I decide. So you see how it rolls, right? You got all this stuff prepared, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm glad you're prepared. Let me just throw it all out.
Yeah, pretty much, but I'm okay. Let's go with it.
So, in my primary practice, I don't know if you did any research on like my show or who I am when you accepted it. Some people do, some people don't care.
I did.
Okay.
I had the FBI run a deep background check on you. It came up positive.
I thought I felt somebody behind me messing where they shouldn't be.
No, that was the practicoscope.
But one of the things that I seriously, part of my practice, which I've had for 33 years now, is I work as a medical intuitive. And so I'm always looking to check out alternatives that I might not have heard of, both for myself and if they feel appropriate and I get the intuitive hit, it would be good for them, that I am always comfortable recommending people check things out if I get, this would help.
Sure.
So I would love to hear more about this stem cell thing and put that link on the Facebook page. I hear the incoming music. We will be back in a minute with Gordon Phillips, the 77-year-old, 27-year-old, right here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Host your show on FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
if you could find a way,
To get inside.
each other's mind.
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. I'm here today with Gordon Phillips. Gordon has had an amazing 77-year run of not getting old, not getting sick, and creating a life that I suspect probably brings him a lot of joy.
Indeed, sir.
We have not confirmed. I can tell. People often say to me, "What do you do for work?" And I go, "I don't do work. I do joy. I get up every day and I get to be me, and it doesn't get any better than that." And I can tell when I have met a kindred spirit, as in you.
Thank you.
So we brought Gordon on to give us some insight or wisdoms that may help those of you that are dealing with health issues, or maybe are not growing old as gracefully as they would like, or maybe not growing old gracefully at all, or maybe worried about they're not even going to get a chance to grow old. But we've been ping-ponging around, as we always do on the Dr. Kevin Show. And so tell me a little bit more. I'm very fascinated. Stem cell stuff is fascinating. I do want to say to my listeners that I have heard of the Beamer before, and I knew some people that were doing stuff with the Beamer. Actually, they live in Chicago, but I didn't see them this last time I was there. I knew they were very enthused. It didn't call me at the time, but when you talked about it today, it felt like today was the day when I went, I might want to know more about this. I don't know why, because it's not new. It's not a new technology to me, but now seemed to be the time that you struck the check this out better.
Yeah, circle back and get in touch. The only downside, the Beamer is in the range of $5,000, so it's like a lifetime dynasty family purchase, and a lot of people just their face turns white when you tell them the price. But as I like to joke, well, you've got a ski mobile, you've got an ATV, riding a lawnmower, plasma TV, and a summer home. Maybe you need to sell some of that stuff and buy some of the things that will keep you alive and in good health longer. But the Healy, some of these technologies are more expensive, but some of them are very affordable. So, if I may, I'll tell you about the stem cell patch, because it's $3 a day. If you want to talk price, and the effects. Yeah. So, well, I learned about this 2 years ago from a nurse who's a friend of mine. Her name is Sandra. She lives down in the South, and she's got a real twang. I love talking with her on the phone. Matter of fact, she's the one who told me about Beamer. She called one day and said, "Did I ever tell you about Beamer?" And I said, "What?" I thought she meant the car, But she also introduced me to the. So there's a company called LifeWave. And the founder, David Schmidt, the CEO and founder, when he was he's in his early 50s, I think, about 20 or more years ago, he had a contract with the U.S. Navy under some kind of secrecy provision. They were trying to develop technology for submariners who would go down in these bathyscaps. They'd be down, 15,000 feet. They'd be down there for 3 days straight, and they had to stay awake and alert the entire time. And they were using amphetamines and, God knows what else to try to keep them. And so he was working on light therapy. He was working on technology that would allow the body to stimulate itself naturally. And what he did is such a breakthrough. This has got to be, 20, 30 years ahead of what you'll ever see in a doctor's office. So what he did is he did research on peptides. One of the peptides is called GHKCU. It's a complex molecule based around a copper atom. That peptide upregulates over 4,000 genes in the human body, and every one of those genes has to do with either rebuilding tissue, repairing tissue, or rejuvenating tissue. What he did is he developed a patch, like a little tiny round Band-Aid. It doesn't have any product on it. It's called non-transdermal. There's nothing on it that actually goes into the skin. It contains nano-sized crystals. A nano is like 1/1000th of a meter. And the crystals are composed of different organic substances. That's where the patent comes in. He's got over 100 international patents. But every day, every minute of every day, your body is giving off light. You say, well, what do you say? I can't see you. You're not glowing in the dark. Well, yeah, you are. If I were looking at you in infrared, your body is emitting infrared radiation all the time. It's just below the human visible wavelength, so we can't see it. So what this patch does is it reflects back into your skin a subset of that infrared radiation, which then stimulates nerve endings on your skin, which then stimulate the GHK-Cu peptide, which then stimulates your stem cells. So you get this phenomenal response of stem cell production and activity. When what I've read from their literature is by the time you're 35 years old, your body's production of stem cells is already down by 50%. I was surprised. I thought it would be much older. By the time you're my age, it's almost non-existent. So you put on this patch for 12 hours at a time. It goes on a couple designated places on your body, and you take it off 12 hours later. I mean, that's literally all you do. It takes you, 10 seconds twice a day. And the results are stunning, absolutely stunning. You're immediately, your stem cells are those intelligent, undifferentiated cells that your body sends to wherever repair needs to be done. So if you're someone who's got problems, you've got arthritis, or you've got rheumatoid arthritis, you've got any kind of inflammatory problem, you're probably going to see a result. I've seen people right before my eyes have a response in less than a few minutes. But if you're in reasonably good health, the effect will be taking place inside you. The rebuilding will be taking place inside you, and you won't necessarily see it. So when I first heard about this, it sounded just a little over the top, even for me, and I'm usually pretty open-minded. So my attitude was these companies all tend to promote themselves. They always put their best foot forward, naturally. I want to know what real people say. So I found a Telegram channel that had testimonials that people had been putting on there for 2 years. They're just everyday, regular people. They had nothing to sell, nothing to promote, just coming on, looking into the camera and telling their story. And after I'd seen 10 or 20 of them, I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is unbelievable. It really is. It's just astonishing, the health benefits that are being corrected by this. So I started using these a year ago, and I didn't have any complaints. I wasn't looking for any miraculous recovery or anything. The first thing I noticed within 1 week, I've always cut my fingernails about every 3 days in my life. I have to cut them almost every day. They just get a little too uncomfortably long. I was a professional musician years ago, and I play the piano every day. Of course, we type on keyboards, and when your fingernails get a little too long, you notice it. And I would say, well, wow. But if you go, there's a website I can give the listeners if they're interested in going there. But at the bottom of the site, this is the proof positive. You see people, and mostly and we're all vain. Everybody's a little bit vain about their appearance, especially as you age. But maybe if this doesn't sound too sexist, maybe women are a little more vain. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But anyway, all the pictures tend to be of women, and it's before and after. So you have a gal who's in her 50s or 60s. And 1 year later, she literally looks 10 years younger. And you say, well, what happened? Why'd that happen? Because it wasn't some Botox or injection or creams or ointments or whatever. What happened was that her tissue at the subcutaneous level, under the surface of the skin, is actually rebuilding. And so the crow's feet and the wrinkles and the age spots and all that stuff gradually start fading and ironing themselves out. And people look truly different a year later, and everybody does. Some less so, more so than others, but everybody distinctly looks improved visually. So you have to say, well, okay, it's obviously working. If you can see this effect working on the surface of your body, you know that it's working internally, even if you can't see what's happening inside your organs. So I did a lot of research on this. I never sign up with these companies until I've satisfied myself that it's for real. So I went on PubMed.gov. I went on Google.Scholar. I think it's Google Scholar, where there's a whole bunch of papers that have been published on this peptide that go back decades before this company ever existed. This has always been known to be true, but no one ever found a unique way to naturally stimulate it. So here you have your own light from your own body healing yourself. So there are no side effects. There's no possible way that it could harm anybody. You could use it on a baby, pregnant people, anybody. It's just, so anyway, that's my quick little brain dump on that technology. But it's just amazing, and it's inexpensive. It's about $100 a month with shipping if you become a customer. So it's like $3 a day, and that's pretty much within the price range of most people, I would say. So that's it.
Oh, well, that's not it. I got a question.
Okay, no, I mean, I didn't want to keep talking.
Good, I'll tell you when that's it. That's it, okay?
A little self-awareness, that's all. Go ahead.
So, you put it on. Mm-hmm. You put it on, you said 2 different places. So there are specific places you put it on that are supposed to be most, or do the places shift if you have different health issues?
No, that's a great question. No, actually, you can put it on anywhere on your body. It works optimally on a couple of specific acupressure points. One is on if you bend over and bend your neck down, you feel across the top of the back of your neck, the very highest vertebra, that little bump you can feel at the base of your neck. Yep. That's an ideal place to put it on. And then another one is just 2 inches below your belly button. So my joke, and I don't mean to sound unkind, but there are a lot of people these days who can't find their belly button. So but you can always find that bump on the back of your neck. And so then I've got a friend who's really, I don't say he's quite anally retentive, but he's an engineer and they can be really annoying, you know. So he said, do I have to put it on exactly on that spot? I said, you mean you have to get out like a compass? I said, no, just anywhere close will work. Then he said, do I have to put it on exactly 12 hours? I said, no, just anywhere, 10, 12, 14. The idea is give your body a period of stimulation and then a period of rest and stimulation. But to answer your question, if you have a specific problem, you can put the patch on right next to a wound. Like post-surgical recovery is nuts. You see before and after pictures of someone who just has surgery and they kind of look like Frankenstein with those big stitches down their neck. And 60 days later, you can't even see where the scar was. So,
Oh, but Gordon, if they were using this, they shouldn't have needed the surgery.
Well, yeah, but they didn't know. So presumably, Kevin, they didn't know. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah. People tend to come to these methodologies when they're really in trouble. That's how we humans are. When they've been to the doctor, they've gotten the shots, they've gotten the $5,000 stem cell injection because they've been in such pain. Maybe they got a tennis elbow that was, whatever, and they've been on the steroids and they get some relief, but then 30% of the time stem cell injections stimulate an autobody response and you have a much worse situation. Plus it's someone else's stem cells that are getting injected into you. And then someone tells them, hey, why don't you go take a look at this patch? And then they roll their eyes like, you got to be kidding me. How could this be real? And then they've watched 20 videos and read a couple of things and you say, okay, let me try it. And the company has a money-back guarantees, all that kind of stuff is the commercial side of it. But then it works. And it's like, oh, my goodness, you can't, now I got to tell the whole world. So it's kind of cool.
Go ahead.
No, I'm talking too much again.
So definitely put the link on the Dr. Kevin show. I always ask this question when somebody's talking about something. Mm-hmm. With neutral energy, is this in the MLM format?
Yes, it's a direct sales company. Yeah. The only to explain that, you can't. There's no way to get to the American marketplace these days without some form of word-of-mouth marketing. The drug companies will not allow this kind of competition to ever show up on a cable TV news channel. And your print advertising, radios, typically paid radio commercials, is prohibitive. So these companies just take the route of, hey, we're going to let the people be our advertising budget, and if it's a good thing, they'll share it. So yeah, to answer your question, it is a relationship marketing company.
Okay. Yep. So I always like to put that out there. I have, through the years, belonged to one or two MLMs, as we just used to affectionately call them. Mm-hmm. Because I knew whatever it was I believed in, and you couldn't get it anywhere else. So we don't have a problem. We don't have a problem here with an MLM. I want people to know it before they click the link.
Oh, 100%. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yep. And I think that, so this leads me to another question, which is, if I got off this phone, I clicked the link, and I signed up, what is my monthly minimum that I have to commit to? Because this is the sticking point for people with MLM sometimes. And, there was a whole bunch of companies that really screwed people over, and I'm not accusing this one of doing it. And again,
totally. Yeah.
I've been involved with ethical MLMs, and they do exist, but it's like, but you have to buy so much product, and you have to, they force you to sell it, and not everybody wants to sell. Some people just want to get. Can you explain a little of that?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. When I first understood this industry, the way it was explained to me was, rather than the standard distribution model where you got a manufacturer who makes wheelbarrows and they get shipped to a regional distribution center at a markup, and then that guy ships them to the local hardware store at a markup, and then he marks them up and puts them out for sale, and then marks them down 25%. You know, everybody somewhere along the line is getting paid, which they should. I mean, that's everything we own in our life was sold to us by somebody. So sales isn't a dirty word. It's just the function of the way the world works. So network marketing just allows the individual to be in that distribution channel. And they're basically compensating you for sharing the word. And it has to be something you believe in. It has to be ethical. But the old model is, oh my God, people pull the shades down. They see you coming up the front walk because you're going to try to sell them your dish detergent or laundry soap, even if they're great products. But if your heart is really in this and you're sharing information, it's not sales. It's like a dog could walk up to you with a CD in its mouth with everything you need to know about a product on it, and you didn't feel like the dog sold you anything. So the idea is I share information, and people are welcome to internalize it. If it clicks, they have to make a buying decision. You can't force anybody to buy anything. They have to want to bring it into their lives. And that's been the spirit behind which I've ever shared any of this kind of stuff. I don't walk around with a business card building any of these businesses. And I didn't even know you existed until a month ago. So, and I didn't know where you wanted to go with the show. I mean, I wouldn't even have mentioned the website. I would have talked to you and just shared information. But
no. I'm happy, but I do want the answer to my question. Is there a minimum monthly buy to stay involved?
No, there isn't. You can, if you want to be a customer. So LifeWave sells a whole line of these patches. This is just one of them, okay? If you want to buy the product, it comes in what they call a sleeve. It's a 30-patch supply for 1 month because they're disposable. You use one a day. You go to the website, and you can be a retail customer and get one order. It would cost you $5 a day. It would be about $150 with shipping. It has a 90-day money-back guarantee, and if you don't like it, you can return the unused product for 100% of your money back. They truly have no questions asked. So there is no financial risk. If you decide that you want to become what's called a preferred customer, you can do that, and then the price drops to $3 a month. But you can quit at any time. So you're not locked into, you're never pressured to continue purchasing, and you're never pressured to share it with anybody else. They treat you like grown-ups, is the way I like to put it.
If you're a preferred customer, is there a minimum buy?
Only if you want to be what they call a brand partner. All these companies require you to have a certain amount of volume in your organization before they can turn around and compensate you. Otherwise, they go out of business. So if you're preferred, totally. If you're a preferred customer and you don't want to share this with anybody, you just want to use it for yourself, you're just buying whatever you want. Whatever number of patches you want to buy is what you order, and if you don't like them, you can send them back. You can not order this month, order next month. It's totally up to you. But once you go the marketing side of it, and you want to start to build an organization, well, yes, they set minimums, which any marketing company would do, even outside of the network marketing space. So does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And transparency is very important to me here because again, I have been involved with MLMs. I've been involved with ones I regretted because to even get the product, you had to have a minimum buy, and then you suddenly get a backlog of stuff, and it's only if they auto ship. And a lot of them have moved away from that because that's really what destroyed the MLM's credibility, was companies that made you basically fill your basement with supplies.
No, you're absolutely correct. That was the model back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And starting around the 90s, the industry really cleaned itself up. But today, it's very, very, very transparent. They're all very ethical the way they operate. Well, all the big ones are. Let me say that, put it that way. All the major ones are.
And one of the reasons I want to have this conversation with you on air, and I'm putting you in a position where I had said to you before you come on, I don't want you to be doing sales pitches, but I'm asking you. And one of the reasons is, I have good close friends that have made fabulous livings off ethical MLMs and have helped other people make ethical livings off MLMs. And again, I have no problem with it. I have got people involved with them before, but I'm always really clear. Be really clear. Just, decide, because, there's the old marketing type of thing that a lot of people either experienced or knew somebody that experienced and said, oh yeah, if you do this, you'll only have to work 20 hours a week. You'll be your own boss. Within 6 months, you can quit your job. They give them the used car salesman approach. And that's why
true. Yep.
Having this conversation, you and I have both been around a long time. And we've seen decades of this stuff both be unethical, and now, as you said, and that's my experience as well, it's more ethical than it's ever been, because it had to be, because the industry was dying because of its unethicalness. But I want the listeners, because I will guarantee you I have listeners that if they clicked on the link, saw MLM, would not go any further just because they have a traumatic experience.
Oh, I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. The industry did a terrible job of representing itself. And you're right, in the beginning, you had distributors with basements full of soap powder and laundry concentrate and get stuck with the inventory. No, today it's a very enlightened, the internet is what changed everything. Today, with every place you go, there's an affiliate link. Click here to share this video with a friend. If you buy something from someone who's an Amazon affiliate, it's going to be the same exact price. It's not going to cost you any more, but a little piece of that is going to go to the person who sent you the link. It's become normalized in our society. So the idea of referral marketing, I don't even like multi-level. It just sounds like a big scheme. They call it relationship marketing. Now they call it social marketing. It's network marketing is even a passé term now. But it's really just, if you have something in your life that you think has value to other people, all you have to do is introduce it to them. And they're totally welcome to say no thank you or tell me more. And then I don't ever follow up with anybody, because I don't want to be a salesperson. I don't even want that stigma. I don't want it to have that aroma in the air, because everybody assumes, oh my God, he's going to try to sell me something. So it almost makes it difficult sometimes to share something with someone that you almost feel like you have to backpedal so vigorously just to put something in front of someone. I've got friends who had serious health problems, who've had dramatic turnarounds by using this particular product. But almost every single time I had to be very careful how I brought it into the conversation, because there's that instant knee-jerk trigger, like, oh my goodness, he's going to try to sign me up with, quote, one of those things. But it turns out that these companies are very, very, very forward-looking. And I'll tell you something else, Kevin. I don't know if you're experienced lately, but when you're in one of these businesses, the people you're surrounded by these days, they're not the piranha, the money-seeking piranha that we saw a couple decades ago. They tend to be more enlightened people. A lot of people are really there because they genuinely are enjoying how their life has changed as a result of being in this environment, both what it's done for them financially, but it's what it's done for the people that they've shared the product or the service with. So that's been my experience anyway.
So one of the things is that, again, I wanted to have this part of the transparent conversation so people who, and again, I have clientele. I have people that, I look at this thing and I try it myself. I get a good feel from it. I weigh the things. I'm going to be recommending it to the appropriate clients because that's why they come to me.
Sure, of course.
Or, my medical intuitive and my 30 plus years of experience in alternative health. It's not one or the other. This means there were so many things that we didn't get to that I would love to have you come back at some point. Tell me you'll come and play on the Dr. Kevin Show again.
Absolutely. I've got you just throw the ping pong ball over the net and we'll, yes, sir. It would be a pleasure.
So if I am not mistaken, you live within my area generally.
I live in the People's Republic of New Hampshire. Yes, I do.
Yes. So I know that we are going to start to hear the exit music any moment now. So offline, let's make sure let's connect.
All right.
Let's see if we can connect in person. Would love to do that.
Great. That'd be great. We'll hop on Zoom and say hello to each other. It'd be nice to see you in the real world, and we'll share some. I got a lot of things I would love to share with your listeners, including on the whole financial side of things, which would be a lot of fun to talk about.
So, that said, Gordon, I want to thank you for coming. I had left a message with you with your phone number that you sent me. I don't know if that's a textable line or not, but if not, feel free to call me back or text me. And go on the Dr. Kevin Show on Facebook. Post the stem cell thing. People are fully aware on what they're clicking if they choose to click it, and that's the kind of transparency I need to feel good about you posting it. And so share it with the world.
I will. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking with you. You got a great sense of humor, and I always appreciate that in a person.
I laugh at everybody, including myself. Have a good one.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.